you're heading away, you're going on an adventure camping trip, and you're going to need to eat. It's kind of important. So you're going to need to choose your cooking system. So we've got an array of stoves here that we will talk through, but actually something to be mindful of is you don't actually need a stove if you're just going away for one night. You can actually take some sort of soup or beans and sausages or something similar in a flask. A flask will keep your meal warm for about 24 hours. But if you do want a stove and you do want to be going for more than one evening, we've got some things for you to think about.
Firstly, what are you planning to eat? If you're taking a steak and vegetables, you're going to need a stove that you can control the heat to cook it properly. And for that, we would definitely recommend a spider-based gas stove as being the best option. It's got really good temperature control, so you can avoid burning everything. If you're not taking fresh food, then either of these are really good options. They boil water really well, so that you can rehydrate meals very simply with these.
So a consideration when you're deciding on what cooking system you're going to have is the weights. If you're going on a short trip, then the weight might not be so much of an issue, but if you are carrying, then every gram counts. So our lightest one is this one, which is around 210 grams. Then this one is around 300 grams. And this is our heaviest at around 500 grams. So if you're going for a few days trip, then you probably want to be considering this one. If maybe you're only going for a day hike, then or an overnight, then you could consider this one.
Fuel availability also needs to come into it. If you are travelling somewhere remote, getting new gas canisters can be a problem. I've struggled just in Scotland to find a gas canister when I needed it. So certainly if you're travelling somewhere very remote, there are better fuel options. And the information sheet that we've produced to go alongside this video does detail other stoves that will burn on literally anything, from petrol to diesel to jet fuel to paraffin, and that might be a consideration you want to take into account.
So when it comes to cost, particularly if you're new to camping, you might want to go for a really affordable option. These are available for around £20. If you've got a little bit more money, jet boils are around £90, and one of these is around the £30 to £40 mark.
Which includes the pot, which you do have to buy extra. So if you're a beginner in adventure camping, we would say definitely this stove is the one to choose, or a very similar one, a spider-shaped gas stove. It's stable, it's cheap, it's relatively fast. You will need to use a windshield with it to keep the wind off it so the gas doesn't blow out. If you're going really lightweight, then consider a stove like this. It's a good balance, it's a little bit slow, but it's so light you'll barely notice it in your pack. If you want speed, if you're making a cup of tea in the middle of a day trip, or if you're only going for one night, then maybe the extra weight of the jet boil is worth considering. One of the simplest stoves that you can use as a beginner who's doing adventurous camping would be a little gas stove. This one comes in a little bag with a pocket for the lighter on the outside. The pot comes separately, so you get to choose your own pot. I've got a titanium pot, which is really quite lightweight. And inside, I can fit a very small gas canister and the burner. I've chosen to show a spider style burner because they are more stable than the burners that mount on top of the gas canister. So if you are new to wild camping or to adventurous camping, this is a much better setup to get you going because there's less knowledge and less risks with it. The burner itself has a metal tube that attaches to the gas canister, so the gas canister is away from the burner and away from the heat, and they've got 3 legs that fold out to hold the burner off the floor. I'm actually going to be using, for this example, my really big gas canister. I normally camp with my 3 children and my husband, so a big canister is completely appropriate for us, and one of these will last us about 10 days as a family. If I was cycle touring on my own for a really long trip, like weeks or months, again, I'd probably carry one big one rather than lots of small ones, because lots of small ones, the cost really adds up, and that is cheap and it's not likely to run out on you anytime soon. Really simple to use. The gas canister has a screw thread on top and the end of the tube has a matching one, and you literally just screw the two together. The gas canister then needs to go upright so that the gas coming out of the tube is in its gas form, not in its liquid form. To light the stove, we're going to turn the gas on with the knob here, and I'm going to use a lighter. You could use matches. So turn the gas on, flick the lighter, and you can hear it roar into life, and I assume against my black you can probably just about see the flames. These stoves are a little bit prone to the wind blowing them, and when the wind does blow them, you're losing some of the heat out sideways rather than it going up into the pan. So it's really easy to buy or make a little windshield like this that just wraps around it and keeps the wind off. And you can see very quickly that's now got to the boil. You probably see the steam coming up off of it. So yeah, really nice and fast.
So this is a jet boil. It is about 500 grams and it uses a gas canister, and it has 6 parts, and you can use it for 1 person, maybe 2 people. So what I like about the jet boil is these bits here, they actually light up when it's boiled, and then you also have a handle to, well, hold it. Here we go, we're putting it all together. Really important that you undo this bit. This is something that I always forget to do. So you screw that on here. You then put the canister onto the stand, and this does give it some stability. We then take the mug bit, cup bit, bowl bit off, and we put this in here and then screw it on. So you actually have to turn on the gas, and then you will start to hear, and then quickly you press the self-lighting. There we go. Then tip water in, stick the lid on, and away we go. So they do say it's meant to take about 90 seconds, but it does vary. There we go. And as soon as this bit here is orange, water is boiled. So the advantages of a jet boil are it's only about 800 grams including the canister, so it is relatively lightweight. I love the fact that it's self-lighting, so you don't have to remember matches or a lighter. It's also relatively windproof because the flamey bit is encased in here. The downsides are it is quite expensive. This one is about £90. Stability is not always great unless you are like on some sort of very hard ground. You can only boil water in this. You can't like heat up baked beans or soup or anything. So you'd use this really for tea making or for dehydrated foods where you're just adding in hot water.
This next stove we're going to show you is the lightest stove out of all the ones we've got. It weighs a little over 200 grams depending exactly which bits of kit you include, although that doesn't include the weight of the fuel. But it's still a lot lighter than the others, particularly as it includes everything you need in there. Inside the bag, I've got a base plate that you put on the floor to protect the ground a little bit. Simply fans out and goes underneath. This is the pot support and the windshield in together. It's made of aluminium foil and it's a tiny bit fiddly to put together. You basically slide the tabs together on the bottom, and then we sort of weave these metal tabs together along the top to create one structure. So literally one over, one under, working carefully around. The more modern versions of this have got little rivets, which makes it slightly easier to build. In the middle of the base plate, I'm going to pop the burner. I'm going to measure about 30 ml of fuel, which is a full cup. That'll be enough to boil a full saucepan. Pour it very carefully in. Now you have to pour this quite slowly because in the bottom of this burner is a little bit of absorbent wadding that sucks up the fuel bit by bit until it's all disappeared. Move the fuel and the cup away from the stove just to keep it all a little bit safer. And again, you can see I am using a fireproof mat underneath as well as my plate because I'm working on a picnic table that I don't want to set fire to. Right, I can now set about lighting this, and again, it shouldn't be too difficult. You can't see the flame, but I can feel it when I bring my hand in close. The windshield goes on top. I'm going to fill my saucepan with water, and this just drops in there and is supported by the rim of the pot. Pop the lid on. These stoves are a little bit slow. I don't mind because I set mine up and then I go pitch my tent when I arrive at the campsite. By the time my tent's pitched, I come back and the water's boiling, so it's not a problem. But if you want to do a really quick stop, perhaps for lunchtime, then the speed of them is a little bit of a disadvantage. I use this almost primarily for backpacking because of its lightweight. If I'm going cycle touring where I'm buying real food, I would choose a gas stove instead. Okay, it's boiling. I'm going to carefully lift the hot water off. The windshield rarely gets very hot because it's so thin, so I can lift it away straight away. As you can see now, I hope you can see that flame just about. Putting it out is a little bit difficult. Some of the burners I've got, you can just drop that on top, but this one doesn't work, so you have to take a really deep breath and go, and it's out. It's actually not too difficult to do, you just need to be a little bit confident and to breathe really deeply before you go in.